temos um convidado mais do que especial. Como vocês provavelmente conhecem, a Escola da Cidade sempre está em conexão e ligada a muitas das instituições culturais da cidade de São Paulo. E, nesta ocasião, a Casa do Povo, temos uma rede de curadores com os quais conversamos, além das professoras da própria Escola da Cidade, da pós, a Carol Tonetti, a diretora Maíra, enfim. Junto com a Casa do Povo, nos falaram alguns meses atrás que o artista Roee Rosen estaria aqui em São Paulo. Vocês vão descobrir um mundo completamente diferente ou do comum que assistem nas conferências de arquitetura, mas é um mundo da fantasia, que me pareceu extremamente interessante para vocês interagirem, terem um pouco dessa imersão em outros universos que nos fazem pensar em outras histórias e que incentivam muito a criatividade. Então, eu estou super feliz de hoje apresentar o Roee. Ele é um artista, cineasta, escritor israelense-americano, reconhecido por seu trabalho multifacético e provocativo, vocês vão ver. Frequentemente desafia as divisões entre história e presente, documentário e ficção, político e erotismo. Transita em vários universos diferentes, onde nós, como arquitetos, podemos fazer as próprias conexões. Rosen dedicou anos à sua pessoa fictícia feminina, a pintora e pornógrafa surrealista judaico-belga Justine Frank, um projeto que envolveu a criação de sua obra completa, bem como um livro e uma curta-metragem, Two Women and a Man. É interessante também como ele transiciona ao cinema, inclusive uma das nossas próximas sessões será especificamente sobre cinema. Em 2010, Rosen criou 2 filmes, Hilarious e Out. Hoje, especificamente, vou dar uma introdução maior à biografia do nosso convidado, que em outras ocasiões eu faço mais curta, porque estamos indo num momento ou num personagem convidado que realmente sai dos nossos limites, da nossa caixa, mais sobre arquitetura e cidade, né? Estreou Out, né, no Festival de Cinema de Veneza, onde ganhou o prêmio Orizzonti de melhor filme de média-metragem, para vocês verem um pouco, né, o nível do trabalho do Roee. O filme recebeu inúmeros prêmios, incluindo uma indicação para o prêmio da Academia Europeia. O filme de Roee, The Dust Channel, foi coproduzido pela Documenta 14. Não sei se todos vocês conhecem Documenta. Documenta é um evento de arte que acontece a cada 5 anos em Kassel, na Alemanha. É um dos eventos mais importantes da arte contemporânea, que na lógica ou na filosofia um pouco das bienais, mas indo com uma pesquisa muito mais aprofundada. Então, o trabalho dele foi exibido ali, junto com 2 instalações históricas de texto e imagem. É interessante depois conversarmos mais, entendermos mais sobre o trabalho dele. Foram realizadas também já várias retrospectivas de cinema do Rosen, incluindo o Festival de Cinema de Oberhausen e o Festival na UNAM, na Cidade do México. O Rosen está aqui em São Paulo, a convite da Casa do Povo. Ele estará subindo no palco. Agradecemos muito sua presença, junto com o Gustavo, que coordena a própria residência do artista dentro da Casa do Povo, e o Roee apresentará ele. Roee vai apresentar em inglês, mas temos o Gustavo que vai fazer a tradução, caso seja necessário, ou talvez ir mediando um pouco para que as falas não fiquem tão longas enquanto vocês vão escutando ele. Obrigada, thank you very much. We're very excited to have you here at Escola da Cidade.
Hi. Gustavo Gomez here with me is, in my mind, a great choreographer, dancer, artist. And I'm here as the mentor for Gustavo's new project. And a little taste of it will be presented tomorrow at Casa do Povo, along without the film that Sol mentioned, my film. So you're most welcome to come. It's free, of course, and we'll be really happy to see you there.
Na quinta-feira, às 7 horas, nós vamos apresentar o trabalho Out, que é um outro filme que ele também vai estar apresentando na Casa do Povo, e um solo que eu vou estar apresentando também, que faz parte do Forecast, que é um trabalho chamado The Blue Shoe. E todos estão convidados, é um trabalho de graça, é uma evening de graça. Se vocês quiserem vir, estão convidados. E
Okay, my own work, as you might have got a hint from what Sol said, tends to be very complex. And often I work on a certain premise, a certain concept for many, many years. So Justine Frank, for example, this fictive character that Sol mentioned, it was about 10 years in the making, which means also a form of self-negation, because mostly what artists do is trying to forge their own style, their own identity, but to become someone else is also a way to betray yourself, to cheat yourself, or to try to become someone else.
esse trabalho da Justine Frank é um personagem que ele criou durante 10 anos. Nessa criação, é um personagem fictício que também ajuda nesse distanciamento do caráter dele e do caráter do trabalho que ele vai apresentar. Então, tem esse distanciamento dessa autonomia entre o personagem e o trabalho que ele faz.
And this dichotomy between the self and the other is also related to other dichotomies between fantasy and documentary, and also between the present and the past. So my attempt is always to show that the past is very much alive, and that fantasy can be real and documentary can be a lie. Things that I think here in Brazil you feel very strongly, that the past has been fabricated, that identity is more complex than what we've been told. So this, I think, is the realm that I'm trying to work in. And it will be shown today through 4 characters of different kinds. It will be Kafka, which is the last project that I made. I will show you 2 excerpts from the film with Portuguese subtitles. It would be Shylock, the hero of Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice. Then Justin Frank, and then another fictive character, Maxim Kumar Mishkin. I will present each of those.
Então, ele está bem interessado nesse relacionamento entre verdade e ficção, no distanciamento e na conjunção entre esse trabalho junto, e também na noção da verdade e do fictício. E no contexto brasileiro, tanto que isso é interessante, como o passado se relaciona com o presente, e o que é o real e o que não é o real. Era mais pelo nosso contexto também, como a gente não consegue, às vezes, ter uma distância, uma diferença entre a verdade e o que é fabricado. Esse trabalho também, ele acompanha isso. E ele vai apresentar hoje 4 characters: Kafka, Maxim, Shylock,
Maxim Kumar
Maxim
Mishkin,
Kumar
and
Mishkin,
Justin Frank.
and Justine Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that some of you probably know about Franz Kafka, perhaps one of the most famous writers of the 20th century, someone who's iconically Jewish, like a Jewish identity, and also someone who has been made into a cliche. We say Kafkaesque about something that is very oppressive and melancholy and sad. And I think that if I spoke about self-betrayal, I really venerated Kafka. Kafka for me was a very, very important writer. So at one point I decided to make violence to Kafka. And what can be more violent than trying to take his story and make it fit for toddlers, for little children?
Começa com essa ideia do que pode ser mais violento do que trazer essa história numa maneira infantil, com um caráter infantil, e tem esse relacionamento entre a verdade e a mentira, e quanto que ele é icônico, o Kafka, e os últimos, classicamente judaica, nos últimos 10 anos dessa dicotomia entre o verdadeiro.
Okay, and so the film it's a feature which was screened yesterday. Unfortunately, I thought it would be after this lecture and that you will be able to see it, but it was not the case. It's 2 hours long, and it is set as a pilot for a TV series in which the stories are being told. And the first story to be told is one of the most famous, The Metamorphosis. It's a story in which a traveling salesman, Gregor Samsa, wakes up one morning and finds out that he turned into a gigantic vermin. Sometimes it's an insect, sometimes it's a cockroach, sometimes it's a beetle. It's a shape-shifting vermin. Do we need to translate everything or just selected? How do you feel,
Sim.
guys? Do you need everything translated?
Vocês
or-
precisam de tudo traduzido ou vocês conseguem entender o que ele está sendo dito? Tem alguém que não entende? Tá.
I would
No
ma-
caso, eu posso falar com ela? Ah, tá. She said it's actually quite good because everybody understands English. So that,
Okay,
wait.
so I will go on in English,
Mhm.
and if there is a moment when you feel really uncomfortable,
Oi?
all right. So as I was saying, the story of Gregor Samsa was turned into an insect, a very very famous story, a story I think that is almost impossible to make into a film. But the attempt here is really to make something that is very un-Kafkaesque in the usual sense of the word. So this is a musical comedy. This very melancholy story is being turned into a comedy for children with beautiful music. What you see here is the set design that I made for the Magical Story House, the place where there is a father figure, an older guy telling the story to a child. And you can see in the design that the furniture has holes. So each piece of furniture, the chair, the table, is in fact a singer and an actor. You can see it here. So you have Mrs. and Mr. Chair, and you have Mr. Table, and you have Mrs. Lamp. They all participate in the story. They dub the different characters in the story, and they sometimes burst out singing. Okay. And the second part of the stage that you saw is where the orchestra stays. It's an orchestra made entirely of toy instruments. So the entire thing is very complex music, but played only with toys. Okay, so this is where the story is being told. The story itself is being presented in animation. I will just show you some of the sketches. All right, so what I'm showing you here is the basis of the animation, which is very simple, because the whole story takes place in 2 rooms. Gregor Samsa's bedroom and the living room of the Samsa family. So what you see here is like 360 degrees, the whole 4 walls of a square room. And it's all made with gouache, the simple, yes, it's my drawing with a small brush, but it's 240 centimeters, so it's quite big. And then it is scanned in very high resolution, so the camera can go in on details. You can see, different details. This is actually the living room, so it's only 2 walls. Then you'll see also the bedroom.
No caso, são 240 centímetros que ele produz num papel, e aí ele meio que traduz em resolução alta. Isso é impresso, e no caso é uma sala e um quarto em que essas 2 cenas estão sendo feitas.
And then, I drew in gouache the different characters separately, and all I had to do was to superimpose them on the backdrops.
Esses characters são feitos em gouache, e eles colocaram, foi sobreposto em cima desse trabalho que ele já tinha feito anteriormente.
And there were 2 animators who did the actual animation. I prepared as many gouaches as they needed. And I got really interested in what makes a face, So in the case of Gregor Samsa, his face is very unstable. Sometimes the mouth is up, sometimes it's on the side. So it always keeps moving.
Ele tem um interesse grande no que faz o rosto uma face. Então, essa brincadeira desse trabalho de morfologia no rosto é uma coisa que interessa a ele.
This is his sister, Grete, his little sister.
Essa irmã dele, Greta,
whose eyes are like a screensaver, so the different circles move around, like as if it's an algorithm. So she looks kind of reflexive, like she's thoughtful. But then when she's angry, the circles become concentric.
ele tem essa irmã, a Greta, e ele tem essa qualidade tipo de screensaver, em que os olhos eles se mexem no lugar, porque tem essa qualidade no caráter do personagem no filme.
And this is the mother,
Essa é a
whose
mãe.
face is always kind of self-contradictory. So when it's vertical, the features are horizontal and vice versa. She sometimes has two mouths, sometimes only one.
E essa é a mãe, ela tem esse caráter dualístico, no caso que duas faces podem ser colocadas numa só, e tem essa qualidade de humor que também pode ser dividida num caráter só.
Yeah, and it's actually the interesting thing is it took years to make, and the interesting thing was to find out slowly that there are things that are really infantile and childish about Kafka's story. And one of them, for example, is that we keep seeing mother's underwear. Somehow there is always an excuse for her dress to go up and to expose her underwear.
Então, no caráter desse trabalho, tem esse motivo dessa underwear, dessa cueca feminina que costuma aparecer recorrentemente no trabalho. É uma coisa que ele queria colocar um foco também nisso.
And this figure of the mother and the father is, there is a very famous scene, a very horrific scene in the story where the father throws apples at Gregor. One of them gets stuck in his back. He eventually dies. But this is mother trying to stop father from throwing the apple, so it becomes a very, of course, erotic scene.
Isso é uma das cenas do trabalho em que o pai ele joga uma maçã na costa do Greg, e aí ele meio que tem essa qualidade erótica, mas também violenta em relação ao trabalho, que traz essa atmosfera.
Okay. I will tell you now, I will explain who this character is, but I should tell you about the film, that the film itself undergoes a metamorphosis. It begins as a kind of a children's story, and then it gradually changes and morphs into dealing with real political and legal issues in the occupied territories of Israel. And the question that is being asked during the comedy, the Kafkaesque comedy, is what is a child? Gregor is the child of the Samsa family. Grete is a child as well. It translates into a very realpolitik question. What is a child according to the law of the military regime in the occupied territories? I'm just saying this as a kind of a spoiler. So you realize that all those pleasurable aesthetic games lead to something very different.
O filme em si ele tem essa estética infantil, mas ele tem uma agenda também em relação à ocupação, e ele fala muito sobre, tem um foco muito no que é uma criança, assim, é uma questão que acontece várias vezes no filme, o que qualifica uma criança, é a perca dessa inocência, ou começa também, tem essa qualidade infantil no começo, e ele tem uma troca radical no momento em que, na verdade, a gente vê que não é sobre... É um spoiler sobre relação a isso do filme, mas o filme não é exatamente do que se trata de primeira, porque ele tem essa qualidade infantil, mas ele se transforma num trabalho mais político.
Okay.
Uma questão política.
This is the figure of the cleaning lady. She appears in the last chapter of the story when Gregor is already, he has the apple stuck in his back. He becomes a kind of an anorexic. He doesn't eat at all. And she's a kind of a big, strong woman. It's very much like a masochist, male masochist fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But she's also extremely lower class, right? She's this almost enslaved older woman who's Gregor with this huge woman. And for me, as a painter, it was very exciting because her face is ultimately very strange. In the movie, it changes, so there is a different number of circles, which also change their function. So a circle can be a mouth that turns into an eye, nostril, disappear. So the face is constantly changing.
No caso, tem essa reflexão também em relação à classe social também, né? No sentido de que essa clean lady, ela tem essa qualidade esses círculos que eles se movem durante o trabalho, voltando também no trabalho, uma identidade que ele tem no trabalho dele, dessa reimaginação do rosto, do que quer dizer em cada espaço onde ele fica.
Okay, and now I will show you the first excerpt from the film. We'll go to different characters, and then in the end, I will show you a scene that I really love to end this meeting. I will set this up. This is a moment when, after Gregor becomes a vermin, all of a sudden strange things happen in the family. It turns out that the father is not as weak as they thought he was. Things are much better financially, but also Gregor is changing. And for me, this song, it's a song, is all about the happiness of becoming a vermin, because we think about it as this kind of a nightmare, but actually Gregor enjoys becoming a vermin, enjoys losing his eyesight, enjoying, walking on the walls. So this is what this song is about, and you will see both the toy orchestra, the singers, and the animation.
E aí, no caso, essa aqui é uma cena em que o Gregor é o personagem principal da história. Ele já está entrando nessa decadência e ele, no caso, ele sente o prazer e a alegria de talvez encontrar essa miséria que ele se encontrou e como isso se desenvolve na vida dele. E essa é uma parte do filme que vai estar já mostrando, através dessa orquestra, essa felicidade, de encontrar uma felicidade nessa miséria que ele se encontra.
Okay, so I think they need to activate it from up there, right?
Sim, tem como...
The video?
Oi, tem como... o vídeo.
Yes, there were exciting changes in the family, but no less exciting were the changes Gregor himself was undergoing, and he was still evolving.
When sister smells my smell, she feels repelled, she wants to puke. I smell like poo, unclean latrines and soggy green sardines. Disgust is impolite, but I keep seal, I don't rebuke. For in the kingdom of the smell, I am the reeking king.
It is a very, 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 we're green, we envy, I'm a sleeping reeking king. King.
I'm dancing freely on the walls, I'm hanging lightly from the ceiling. I leave behind thin sticky trails of greenish liquid muck. She gags, but maybe it's a jealousy that steers her sickly feeling. Her eyes are set so high, but on the floor she's stuck.
He is a very, 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 with pretty eyes as lively swords, while we are prim and stuck.
Stuck.
I mean, cinema is always collaborative. So you saw the guy playing the toy guitar. His name is Igor Kotogolov. He's the composer. And I've been working with him for 10 years. If you will come tomorrow, you will see him singing in this film Out, which was done like 12 years ago. I know how to edit, but I have an editor who's a friend, and I want to have a good professional next to me. The sets, I designed the sets, but my editor friend did the carpentry, so the budget is always very low. So people do a lot of things. What else? The cameraman, I have a regular cameraman who's really, really very good. And I'm the director, so that's basically and the great, great cast. I mean, really excellent actors, singers.
Assim, o trabalho em si é um trabalho colaborativo, né? Então, no caso, tem o Max também, que faz a edição também. Tem o Igor, que trabalha mais na parte da música também. Ele faz os designs dos desenhos, mas ele manda também para a carpintaria, para que isso seja feito também. Mas é um trabalho colaborativo no sentido de que ele é o diretor, mas que esse trabalho inteiro ele é feito mais como um grupo.
And also animators. I mean, there were a couple of animators.
Tem dois
It was during the quarantine. So I was in my home. I never saw them, only by Zoom. So I would send them scans of the drawings and they would put it into the computer. And if they missed an expression, I would make a new gouache. And so it went for a long time.
No caso, foi feito durante a pandemia também. Então, no caso, ele faz os desenhos, ele mandava para os animadores. Então, foi mais feito nessa colaboração online de ser feito.
Okay. So now we're going 30 years back. This is a project that I did as a student. So 1989 to 91, called The Blind Merchant. Like many of my works, it exists both as a book and as an installation. Here you see it installed in Centre Pompidou in Paris. And it's a retelling of The Merchant of Venice, a very famous play by William Shakespeare.
No caso, esse trabalho foi feito entre 89 e 91. Ele está sendo apresentado no Centro Guggenheim. Pompidou, desculpa. Okay. É um trabalho baseado na obra de Shakespeare também. Oh, sorry, is also based on Shakespeare.
Yes, it's a retelling of a Shakespeare play. Yeah.
É uma reimaginação do trabalho de Shakespeare. De um trabalho de Shakespeare.
And the play, we remember it, we collectively, the culture remembers it mostly for the figure of Shylock, which is the kind of archetypical figure of the Jew, even though it has been forged in Elizabethan England, where there were hardly any Jews. And it is very similar to other characters of the time, like Barnabas in the play The Jew of Malta by Christopher Marlowe. Basically, it's a very evil Jew that deals with money. And usually in all those plays, in the end, he loses everything and is also being forced to convert to Christianity.
No caso, ele nesse trabalho, ele trabalha com vários arquetipos do judeu. E no caso, ele... No final desse trabalho, ele um dos caracteres é forçado a se transformar para o cristianismo.
But the play, even though we remember it for Shylock, it's actually a romantic comedy. a very interesting romantic comedy with a lot of issues of gender ambiguity, women disguised as men, men being kind of subjugated to the women. Very, very interesting play. Shylock is a kind of a marginal character, in fact. And what I'm showing you here, this is 30 years ago, so we already had personal computers, but people were not using things like InDesign yet, like layout and things like that. So the layout was all done like by literal cut and paste. So
Nesse trabalho, nesse character do Shylock, do trabalho do Shakespeare, tem essa ambiguidade do gênero em relação aos caracteres que fazem diferentes gêneros. E esse é um trabalho antigo, no caso que todos foram feitos à mão mesmo, recortados e colocados para o XR depois.
And there are two kinds of drawings in this book. It's a very, again, a very labor-intensive work. It took 3 years to make. There are 145 drawings and two texts, the original Shakespeare text and the kind of a parasitical text going around it, like Talmudic annotations, adopting the voice of Shylock.
Foi um trabalho arduoso que durou muito tempo, mas foram 145 desenhos que foram recortados e colocados em conjunção com esses textos do Shakespeare que ele alocou junto.
So you see here the figure of Antonio in the play, because the merchant is not Shylock. The merchant is Antonio, who's kind of melancholy. It's not clear why. But then once he lends money to his friend Bassanio, who wants to court this princess called Portia, he becomes very happy. And the person who gives him his money, because his ships are out on sea, is Shylock. And the way that the book is built is a bit like a play. So there is a cast, someone is playing Antonio, and there is also a set design. So whenever you see this gondola, these are scenes in a street in Venice.
No caso, tem esse relacionamento com o trabalho do Shylock em relação aos characters, e essa é uma das cenas que a gente vai ver numa gôndola, baseado numa cena de uma gôndola. Isso já é inspiração.
So this is Portia,
Essa é a Portia,
the princess,
a princesa,
and her servant Nerissa.
e o servente dele.
So Portia is played by the woman who was then my wife, and Nerissa is played by Louise Brooks, this very famous silent film star.
No caso, era na época que ele estava casado com a mulher. No caso, essa é baseada nessa personagem. Essa personagem é baseada numa das esposas dele.
And in this scene, they tell about the test that each of the people who want to become the lover of Portia has to go through. They have to choose one of 3 caskets: gold, silver, and lead. And if they choose wrongly, they're literally castrated. They cannot approach a woman again. So,
no caso, existem esses 3 caixões de ouro, prata e bronze. E no caso, esses rapazes eles teriam que estar numa competição para descobrir quem é importante o suficiente para receber esse preço.
okay, and the play presents 2 losers, 2 princesses who did not win. Prince of Morocco, who's the quintessential inferior black, Middle Eastern king, and the King of Aragon, who's this very, very vain, narcissistic European nobleman. And both are played by Edouard Said. Edouard Said was a great Palestinian intellectual, who's also both an elitist, but also a Palestinian, so perfect for this double role.
No caso, são por 2 characters, deles era da Palestinian role. Who was it?
Edouard Said.
Edouard Said, que foi, no caso, uma das pessoas que fez desses personagens.
He wrote a really important book called Orientalism.
Ele escreveu livro muito importante chamado Orientalismo.
Okay. And the main thing that happens here is that Shylock is being given a history, and this is from the prologue. There is no prologue in the play.
O mais importante é ver que o Shylock foi oferecido uma história, mas não foi oferecido um prólogo nessa história.
And there is this traumatic pogrom-like scene in which his wife is being raped and murdered.
E nessa cena pragmática em que a esposa dele está sendo estrupada e morta.
And his eyes are being gouged. Because of this, the book is called The Blind Merchant.
E por isso que o livro chamado O Cego Merchant, por causa que nesse momento que os olhos estão sendo retirados.
you can see that there's a kind of a hidden swastika here as well in the frame.
Você pode ver que também tem uma hidden swastika, uma escondida, uma swastika é escondida no trabalho.
It was a time in which I felt that the Holocaust, the Shoah, could not be tackled through art, but that the roots of the Jewish trauma could perhaps be alluded to.
Talvez no caso para a questão política do trabalho também, mas a raiz da judaica também poderia ser retraduzida em relação a esse trabalho também.
But the important thing is that whenever Shylock is on stage as a blind man, the drawings are blind. They're done with closed eyes.
No caso, o que é importante remeter é que, no caso, toda vez que o Shylock está na cena, os olhos deles foram retirados, então ele está cego.
Yeah, so you have this dichotomy between very detailed drawings and blind drawings, which are negating the basis for drawing, the connection between the hand and the eye.
Então, no caso, esses trabalhos eles estão nessa contradição do que, por ser cego, esse trabalho em desenho não se transmite da mesma maneira.
Just showing you here a blind drawing by Robert Morris,
Tá
an
mostrando o trabalho.
important American artist, but it's a very different one, as you see, because it's more about the process of abstractly drawing blindly, not trying to see through blindness.
No caso, esse trabalho do Alexander Morris é mais em relação à abstração do trabalho e em vez da maneira precisa em relação ao que aquele tema alude na figuração.
Okay, just some more blind drawings.
Outros desenhos mais antigos.
Oh, this is really... Yeah, I cast myself as Shylock, so this is a kind of a strange self-portrait as a man dog.
No caso do Shylock também tem um retrato antigo em relação a ele ser um homem cachorro. Esse relacionamento no desenho.
Okay, I want to move quickly to because we have, maybe also I'll skip Justin Funk because it's too much, I think. But the last act is all based on this very famous etching by Goya, The Sleep of Reason Produces Monsters.
Essa última sketch em relação é um trabalho muito famoso do Goya.
Famously also a self-portrait, it's Goya drawing himself.
É um trabalho que o Goya está tirando um retrato dele mesmo, um retrato próprio dele mesmo.
And it becomes almost animistic. As you'll see, it's not animation like what you saw before, but these are a sequence of drawings, which I'll show you a few of, doing this theme blindly. Yeah.
E ele, no caso, tem esse tema animístico em relação e tem esse relacionamento com a cegueira.
This is working very well. Maybe the battery. Okay. So it ends with the blind man. I mean the sleeping man waking up. So the self-portrait becomes.
Termina com o homem que dorme acordando e se torna esse retrato dele mesmo, esse self-portrait.
I'm going to skip this because they have to do with the connection to other very interesting Jewish artists, but I don't think we have the time. Also.
Okay. Ele vai pular essa parte por causa da questão do tempo também que a gente tem agora.
Okay, I'm showing you just briefly a very, I would say, relatively famous work that I did because it's here the political scandal. It was also text and image. It was an installation called Live and Die as Eva Braun. Braun was the lover, mistress of Adolf Hitler.
Esse é um trabalho antigo, mas famoso dele.
Live and Die as Eva Braun.
Viver e morrer como Eva Braun.
It was like a scenario for a virtual reality.
Foi um cenário para uma realidade virtual que ele fez.
In which you become the lover of Hitler.
Em que ela se transforma o amor do Hitler.
And it was shown in many different places. I mean, what you saw before was in Documenta 14.
E foi mostrado em vários lugares. O que vocês viram anteriormente foi apresentado no Documenta 14.
But initially, when it was shown in Israel, in Jerusalem, it really caused a big political scandal because much of Zionism is based on claiming, an authoritative voice regarding the Holocaust, and that is invariably the voice of the victim.
Sim, no caso, esse foi um trabalho que também foi apresentado em Israel e causou um grande escândalo por causa do teor político em relação a isso e pela voz do caráter principal em relação ao backlash que isso de não se colocar numa situação de vítima em relação a isso.
So when you're the victim, you're of course justified to be violent because you're only protecting yourself.
No
etc.,
caso, a
etc.
vítima, você tem como se proteger em relação a se colocar numa situação vulnerável, mas o trabalho questiona esse relacionamento entre vítima e oposição.
And this, in fact, is also a self-portrait because it's based on a picture of me when I was maybe 2 years old, 3 years old.
Isso também é um retrato dele em relação a ele mesmo, que ele foi feito
But the
baseado na idade de
gestures
12 anos.
are taken from. Oops. Ah, Jesus, this is really a torture.
Mas os gestos foram baseados nessas imagens também do trabalho.
So yeah, these are pictures that Hitler actually had shot in the 20s in order to perfect his artistry as a, rhetorical meister,
Esse foi imagens que é baseado no trabalho que o Hitler fez com ele mesmo em relação a esse autoritarismo e que o trabalho que ele mostrou anteriormente em relação a ele como criança de 2 anos é baseado nessas imagens.
Okay, Justin Funk is really a very, very complex project, but it's also a project where I am set against myself because I'm the person who curated the work, interprets her work, but she is a different author, like a very strong, interesting, not only painter, but also pornographer. She wrote a pornographic novel called Sweet Sweat. And so these are the 2 editions in Hebrew and in English of the book.
O trabalho da Justine Falk também, em relação à transição que ele também faz, ele é um trabalho intelectual, mas também ela trabalhava nesse âmbito também pornográfico, e ele está mostrando também um pouco desse trabalho. Justine Frank.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak in detail about her because I think, again, we don't have the time. But these are from a portfolio of drawings of hers called the Stain Portfolio. And she does many, many self-portraits in which, again, there is the theme of metamorphosis. She changes either into a very libidinal or sexual thing or into this kind of prototypical Jew, like in Shylock.
No caso, esse é um pouco do trabalho da Justine Frank, também é baseado no trabalho dele, que ele toma como inspiração, e tem esse teor erótico, mas também nesse conflito entre vitimização.
This is really important. Okay. Okay. All right. So here I will just say a few words about this particular image, which is typical to Justine Funk. The man is taken actually from a very famous image of women. This is the figure of the hysterical woman, which was rendered in the Salpêtrière, the psychiatric 19th century institute where the great psychiatrist was Charcot. This is also where Freud was educated. And it was really imagining the woman as this hysteric, this person who does not control herself. Here it is being converted both to a Jew and to a man.
No caso, ele nesse trabalho tem essa troca em relação ao gênero e à imagem da histeria e esse diálogo em relação à imagem da mulher no século XIX, em que existe essa escolha entre trocar o gênero em relação à pose e o contexto da histeria.
And the upper figure is taken from an 18th century beautiful Utamaro piece, a Japanese artist, in which indeed there is a woman urinating and a young guy masturbating, looking at her. So here it becomes a kind of a golden shower scene.
E no caso tem um golden, tipo, é inspirado tem esse teor erótico em relação a esse golden shower e desse artista japonês que ele é inspirado.
This is like a torture. Okay, this is I'm just showing you. This is taken from the original print of Charcot from the 19th century, but here used by Max Ernst, a very famous surrealist painter, and I'm showing it also to explain that Justine Frank was a pariah among the surrealists. They really found her very uncomfortable, both because her Judaism was apparent in her work, and André Breton, the leader of the surrealists, was very anti-religious, and also because women were the object of desire. They were not supposed to be the desiring subject. So the themes were the same, but the surrealists felt that Justine Frank was somehow polemic or set against them or trying to provoke them. So she was very unpopular
No
among
caso,
the surrealists.
nessa reimaginação do Max Ernst, do trabalho da Justine Frank, também questiona um pouco dessa situação do corpo da mulher e da voz em relação ao caráter de como isso pode ser retratado.
Another example of this is this character Fantomas, which was a pulp fiction, one of the first pulp fiction novels and then movies, and the surrealists really loved Fantomas, which again is here converted twice into a self-portrait of Justine Frank, so an androgynous, a kind of a woman-man, but also a Jew, so very offensive for Breton.
No caso, isso também trazendo a ideia também da origem da Justine Frank como uma mulher judaica, e tem esses trabalhos aqui em relação aos originais do Pulp Fiction, que foi feito em relação a isso, nessa reimaginação baseada na Justine Frank.
Yeah, you see here the same image that we saw before. The Sleep of Reason produces monsters in a different setting.
A mesma imagem, mas no outro
This is
imagem.
just to give you a kind of a cultural context. Claude Cahun, very, very interesting, explicitly lesbian and Jewish surrealist artist, also at the margins of the movement, not recognized at the time, but today she's considered a very important character.
E ela,
Claude Cahun.
Claude Cahun, uma figura abertamente lésbica e controversa, mas que também está sendo retratada nesse trabalho.
Okay, I'm going to skip this. And then somewhere in the mid-30s, Justine Frank moves to Palestine. Israel does not exist. And she's also a pariah there. There are rumors that her situation declines, that she's disturbing, members of the cultural elite. And then one day in 1943, she disappears. Here she's shown on the seashore of Tel Aviv in the mid-30s.
E com essa mudança para a Palestina também foi com essa figura controversa de talvez ter que se esconder em relação a isso. E naquela imagem mostra um pouco desse relacionamento dela indo para esse outro lugar.
Part of the provocation is her refusal to speak Hebrew. Zionism was very much about the revival of the Hebrew language and also the suppression of the languages of the diaspora, languages like Yiddish and Arabic and other languages. You had to speak Hebrew. So she really ridicules this revival by making the alphabet literally animistic. So each letter becomes a kind of either a torture device or a living being.
No caso, ela também trabalha nessa questão da linguagem como uma maneira animista.
And then each word becomes a little orgy.
Cada palavra se torna de alguma maneira uma certa orgia, também pela inabilidade de ter essa tradução para o hebreu.
Okay, and now I will show you a very, very short snippet of a film. No Portuguese subs, I'm afraid, and it's quite complicated, so I will say a word about it. This is Johanna Foer-Sfari, the translator to Hebrew of Justine Frank, expressing her unease about the relation between Roee Rosen, me, and Justine Frank. And while she does it, you also get to see a part of the political scandal around Justine Frank, the way it was reported in German television, and also an Israeli very influential right-wing politician speaking against Live and Die Zeva Braun. So it's a kind of this is from Two Women and Men, the film that you mentioned. It's a kind of a bringing together of Justine Frank and my own work.
No caso, esse trabalho que vai apresentar agora, ele não tem o subtítulo, mas esse entre conflito entre Justine Frank, conversando com o personagem de Roee Rosen, e mostrando essa problemática da tradução do hebreu.
So if we can have a video now.
אחד האספקטים שקושרים באמת את עבודתו של רוזן לעבודה של פרנק הוא העיסוק בייצוג עצמי. רוזן צייר עצמו פעמים אחדות כדמויות נשיות בהקשר דתי, כגון הקדושות המעונות ברברה, אגנס ולוסי, ללא ספק בהשראת הנטייה של פרנק להציג עצמה בזהויות גבריות שונות, לפעמים, כמו בציור הגילדה של פרנק, ובמעין דיוקן עצמי קבוצתי, אבל ההשפעה הזו נהייתה גורפת ממש בתערוכתו של רוזן, חיי ומות כאווה בראון, שהוצגה במוזיאון ישראל. המיצב כלל ציורים וטקסט שפנה אל לקוח או לקוחה בגוף שני, והזמין אותו או אותה להפוך ולהיות אווה בראון, כביכול באמצעות הדמיה מלאכותית. המבקרים במוזיאון הוזמנו לחוות לא רק רגעים של אינטימיות עם הפירר בשלהי המלחמה, אלא גם התאבדות, כלומר מוות בחיים, ואף ביקור קצר בגיהנום. כפי שניתן היה לצפות, התערוכה עוררה תגובות קשות, ואף חוללה שערורייה פוליטית קטנה.
תערוכה שפוגעת במשפחות שעברו את השואה, האם היא מסתכלת בהומור או באיזה היבט סלחני על היטלר?
Skandal, Skandal, sofort schließen, riefen Politiker, ohne die Ausstellung zu sehen. Einladung zu einem obszönen Albtraum. Fantasien über Sex und Tod mit Adolf Hitler. Bizarr, pornografisch, ironisch. Eine Provokation. Roee Rosen, der Künstler, ich weiß, dass ich provoziere, aber ich will nur Fragen stellen. Was kann man tun gegen das Vergessen?
מטריד אותי שעושים פורנוגרפיה מהשואה, שבאצטלה של אומנות עושים דברים מתועבים, ואני אומר לך את זה בשיקול דעת ולאט, דבר מתועב. לא ראיתי את התערוכה, אני דיברתי נגד האידיאולוגיה של התערוכה, ולשם כך אני לא צריך לראות אותה, ואני אומר לך, ואני בא לעניין הזה מצד השואה. זאת אומרת, לא יכול להיות שאנחנו נזדהה רק עם עצמנו כ6 מיליון קורבנות. אנחנו צריכים להבין את משחקי הפרוורטים של אווה בראון והיטלר במוזיאון ישראלי. מתועב, צריך לזרוק את זה מהמוזיאון, ואחר כך צריך לחטא את המוזיאון לפני שעושים בו תערוכה.
אין מקום להשוות את הפרובוקטיביות העצומה, הנון-קונפורמיזם האמיתי של ז'וסטין פרנק, לעמדה השערורייתית, המתפנקת יותר והנוחה יותר של רוזן. ז'וסטין פרנק הייתה חריגה אמיתית. היא שילמה על כך מחיר אישי כבד מאוד. רואי רוזן, לעומת זאת, יכול אולי לגרור הסתייגות זועמת מצד חבר כנסת מן המפד"ל, אבל תמיד בקרב השמאל הנאור וקהילת התרבות יימצאו לו תומכים.
So just to say a word about this, I think you probably, or maybe you did not recognize that I was Yona for Asfari in drag, and I was dubbed by a woman.
Não sei se vocês perceberam, mas era ele como a personagem em drag, mas interpretando essa figura histórica.
So it's actually
Com uma voz de outra pessoa.
so this I think is really the great thing about fictionalizing a character is that you can attack yourself.
O que é legal em relação a fazer essa caracterização é que você pode entrar em conflito com o que você está apresentando você mesmo, e tem esse fun games em relação a isso.
But it is also something that returns in my work continuously, and that is the doubling of the voice.
É uma coisa que volta no trabalho dele constantemente, que é essa voz dupla, ou essa voz que ela é colocada por cima da voz dele, ou a voz é erradicada e colocada a voz em cima.
Sorry, you wanted to. Yeah. I don't think the issue really was the sexual aspect. I think the issue, I think that the attack was really about something verging on Holocaust denial. And I think that, in Israel there is a very strong discourse around the issue of Holocaust representation. And I was feeling that there is, following a very famous historian called Moshe Zuckerman, he made a distinction between what he called the particular and the universal lesson of the Holocaust. The particular lesson would say, I, the Jew, am the victim. I have to do everything not to become a victim again. So I'm justified to be violent to others. I'm justified to get compensation money from, and I remain forever the victim. Doesn't matter if the victim was actually my father or my grandfather. The universal lesson, Zuckerman says, he's the son of survivors of Auschwitz. Universal lesson is saying, I'm a human being. Human beings did the Holocaust to other human beings. It is my responsibility not to let it happen again. That means that not to let it happen again. That means that there is something of the victimers within me, and I have to be self-reflexive and self-aware of that. That is one issue. The other, I think, has to do with the difference between representing or claiming to represent what really happened, like what Spielberg does in Schindler's List, right? I'm shooting this authentic film which reenacts what actually happened, and between dealing with the traces and signs and scars of the Holocaust in the present, which is what I did, because you don't see the real Hitler or the real Eva Braun. You immediately are being told that these are means of the contemporary moment, virtual reality, and the things that are being addressed are very much planted in the present. So, and this I think was the source of controversy, not the sexual aspect. It was not only that. Most politicians who attacked the piece did not see the exhibition. The scandal began before the show even, also the person who speaks here. I don't need to see the exhibition, I know what it represents. So he had speculated that this was actually virtual reality, that there was a lot of erotic scenes, which in fact there are not all that many, because there was a kind of a political monopoly. It's political power. He's speaking for the Holocaust. He actually says that he's the representative. This is what Paul de Man called prosopopea, speaking for the dead. This is something that a lot of politicians do. The dead are all lumped together, and I have the right to speak for them. So this, I think, was really the heart of the argument. This is going to be hell to translate. Yeah.
Sim, no caso, eu acho que foi, teve um acordo muito grande, teve uma exposição muito grande em relação a isso, na questão política dele ser um homem judeu também, e não se colocar na situação de vítima. Então, pela cultura dessa vitimação, ele também reflete muito em relação a isso. Não eu como judeu falando sobre essa em relação à questão do Holocausto, mas eu como pessoa, como ser humano, também tomando responsabilidade em relação para que se isso acontecer uma vez, talvez aconteça de novo. Então, se colocando nessa perspectiva, existe essa reflexão de que não se vitimizar.
I think that you can sense that each of these projects is so complex that I could speak, for 2 hours about just Living Days of a Brown or Justine Frank. I'm not sure also how are we doing with time, Sol? Maybe I'll skip the last character. So I'm going to skip this last character, Maxim Komar-Mishkin. You'll just quickly see the images. This is an artist, contemporary of ours, who's trying to kill Vladimir Putin by having objects be animated, join Putin in bed, and then torture, rape, and eventually kill the Russian leader. It was done in 2011, so Putin was not president at the time, he was the prime minister. So I will just show you all the images, and then we'll get to see another scene from Kafka for Peace.
Esse trabalho que foi feito também em 2011, no caso, quando Putin ainda era primeiro-ministro, não presidente, e aí trabalha em relação a isso. É um cara que coloca o Putin em situações de estupro e morte, e que é mais nesse teor do trabalho dele em relação a político.
So the guy who supposedly did this was a paranoiac, so everything is replete with details, with characters that Putin assassinated, his lovers, financial transactions, etc., etc.
E no caso tem essa qualidade, tipo, transexuais em relação a outros políticos financeiros, também em relação a a qualidade do trabalho em relação a essa controvérsia.
Okay, so we get to the final scene of Kafka for Kids, I will say that the same girl who plays, I think I said it before, same girl who plays the same actress who plays the girl also plays a legal expert who is explaining the law in the occupied territories to an imagined lover, Kwame, who comes to get her out of this hell on earth. And then we go back to the story of Kafka for Kids, and I think it's a beautiful song, a nursery rhyme that ends the film. So I hope you'll enjoy it.
Isso é uma parte do final do Kafka com Kids, em que é uma expert legal, ela vai estar explicando para um amor dele, a Kwame, para o amor dela, do Kwame, esse relacionamento do que é ser uma criança e esse distanciamento do relacionamento em que ela era criança e não, e a mesma atriz que fez ela mesma como criança, ela está mostrando esse diálogo, esse monólogo para o Kwame.
Okay, so if you can have the video.
ואנחנו נוסעים למעלה, או למטה, רחוק בכל אופן, ובמרחב הזה ההווה מתכווץ לכלל כדור שהולך וקטן. הדברים שהטרידו אותי מתייבשים. ואתם איתם מתייבשים, מתקמשים, מתקשים, ואז מתפוררים לאבק. מתפנה המקום. סבל אחר הטריד אנשים אחרים. הפטמות שלו זכורות כמו חיישנים שמחוילים לקלוט הנחיות ממני. המראה מגרה, אבל להתאפק עד שנגיע הביתה להקרא. אתם מתים. אני צרורה על דרגש קש ברגליים פסוקות, החיות פועות ונועמות בגינה. קוואמה גוהר מעליי. ונהיה חושך.
In the morning, the cleaning woman found the dead insect and dumped him in the dustbin. It was a lovely day. The sun was shining and the family decided to take a day off from work. They packed a basket and went for a picnic.
Oh, like the hunter and Grandma in Red Riding Hood after they killed the wolf.
Yes.
Only the wolf was very heavy because his belly was filled with stones after he gave birth. A hard old sausage.
What?
Sausage for the picnic.
Exactly. And now, it is time to sleep.
Am I alone when I am
against my cheek, the blanket hugs me tight. Will they protect and cuddle me if I am scared tonight? What is a child? What is a child? It's really hard to tell. A child is ever growing, but only for a spell. And if I dream of growing up, will I remain the same? And if I should grow old and tall, will I grow small again? What is a child? What is a child? Till when a child 7, 12, 14. When will it flip from plump and pink to wrinkled aubergine? Perhaps my dreams are dreaming me. It's really hard to tell. Perhaps I live inside their heads, but only for a spell. A child is having promises of futures spread ahead. A treasure box inside of which lies someone older